great ocean of stars awaits us. What or who will we find there? In centuries past, our ancestors built the great undersea ruins that still reveal their secrets to us today. Their works were for many generations beyond us. Their ultimate fate unclear. But across the ages, we have long felt the call of the void. The science of our ancestors has shown us how to travel faster than light itself. But the ruins also tell of a terrible and sudden apocalypse which befell them. Yet its cause is unknown to us. We must not allow this to deter us. Our understanding of science and technology has allowed us to glimpse a greater destiny that waits for us beyond our world. Let us complete the work they set before us, and keep science as our guide as we set forth to push back the darkness. Confront any dangers we meet, and bring peace and enlightenment to all.
Hey, hello everyone. I see a lot of new people in the chat, so let me sort of introduce what we're going to do today and what we're going to see today. First of all, for all newcomers, this is a very chatty, relaxed place, so feel free to ask any question in the chat. We'll pick them up as we go and towards the end of the stream as well. You know, Slytherin has been, you know, teasing about Distant Worlds 2 a little bit since, you know, a few months. So we are now at the point where we can finally reveal Distant Worlds. But before we get to that, this Tuesday slot will be used in the next few weeks to also present you more games that are upcoming. So this is the first one, Distant Worlds 2 for today. Next week, same time, we'll have a reveal of Starship Troopers, Terran Command. In 2 weeks' time, exactly same time, Tuesday, you will see for the first time a reveal of the Black Lab Games new game. The Black Lab Games are the guys behind this Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. And the following one will have 2 new unannounced Matrix games being announced and revealed. So, you know, make sure that you tune in on Tuesday at 5 o'clock UK time, because there's a lot to see, and we've got a lot for you in-house. Agenda of the day, it's very simple. Very shortly, I'll be introducing you to Eric Routins, who is one of the masterminds behind Distant Worlds 2. We will go through gameplay. We will go through a lot of words, descriptions, stuff you might expect from the game. We have an hour in total to fill. I'm pretty sure you will see a lot of things that spark more questions, and I really hope that this is the starting point, right? So Distant Worlds 2 is going to release this year. We don't have a firm release date yet, but it's definitely going to come this year. So we will have plenty of opportunities to show you more gameplay, answer more questions, and so on. So take this as a starting point, and from now on you'll be able to sort of ask anything and make sure that future streams of Distant Worlds will answer all your questions. So without any further ado, let me introduce Eric Routins to you guys. Eric?
Hello, Marco.
Hello, how are you
How are you
today?
doing today? I'm doing okay. It's a nice snowy winter here in Vermont.
It's not as snowy here, but it's still very cold. So we're about to face the worst month of the year in terms of how cold it is. You have been working on Distant Worlds 2 for a long time now. So I think it's a good starting point. This trailer we've seen, the Actarians. Can you tell us a bit more about that faction?
Sure. So, and I want to first also thank everyone for tuning in today and watching this news about Distant Worlds. It's really exciting to be able to talk to you all about it. So the Actarians are the first faction that we're revealing for Distant Worlds 2. We have 7 playable factions in Distant Worlds 2, all drawn from the original Distant Worlds factions. And this one used in-game assets and is intended to give the players an idea of what the Actarian faction is all about. So they are a species that is based on ocean worlds, that they can live on ocean and on land. They have remarkable construction skills, a talent for research and science, and they're generally relatively friendly and peaceful. And as I'm talking, we're showing a few more images of scenes from Actarian gameplay and ships and worlds and things like that in the game.
One good starting point to introduce, anyone who's not familiar with Distant Worlds to the world of this 4X space strategy game is, starting from what the original idea of Distant Worlds was. You and Elliot, the founding fathers of the franchise. Can you sort of guide us through a little bit of a history of the franchise there?
Sure. Well, I mean, Distant Worlds is a highly customizable, easy to manage, but also with incredible depth, real-time pausable sci-fi 4X style strategy game. I guess that's a mouthful. But you can control your own space empire from the first steps into space and go pretty much as far as you want to go in storyline modes and sandbox modes with customizable victory conditions. And really, Elliot is the original founding father. Back in 2007, he came to us with a pretty remarkable idea for what I'd call a living galaxy science fiction game. And he had already made a huge amount of progress with this, but he was looking for a publisher's help and support to bring his ideas to full realization. And that's when he and I started working together. And we worked together over the next 3 years to bring out the full potential of Distant Worlds. And that was released back in 2010. And then we went through several expansions to that, culminating in 2015 with the release of Distant Worlds Universe, which combined all of them together and added a lot of extra modding support. Since that time, Elliot and I have worked together to effectively reimagine, reinvent Distant Worlds 2 while staying true to the original and improve it to make the best sci-fi 4X strategy game that we can possibly make. It's been a labor of love for us and also one of the most important projects for us as a publisher. And as time has gone on, we've had the help of an expanded team. Obviously, a lot of great testers have already contributed. We've had great artists, including our own art director, Richard Evans. And for Distant Worlds 2, we have a composer for original music as well. So with Distant Worlds, what you get is what we call a big living galaxy. It's really alive. There's nothing really hidden behind the curtain. There's nothing really that you can't see if you are interested in it. There's a separation of your economies into a state part and a private part. There's customizable automation, so you can choose your play style and kind of play it your way. And we've added all the bells and whistles we can in all the feature areas that are suitable for a sci-fi 4X game.
Yeah, I think, when starting from Distant Worlds Universe, where you have like an already gigantic game, full of features, full of things to do, but also the whole game itself was a complete thing, right? So what were the challenges of bringing it to number 2, and where did you start from?
Sure. Well, it's definitely a bit of a daunting prospect to follow up on. But we had a lot of ideas that we had back in Distant Worlds 1 that we couldn't act on. In some cases, we were limited by the engine. And so this drove us to say that one of the first things we needed to do for a new Distant Worlds was to create a completely new engine. So Elliot redesigned from the ground up with a 3D 64-bit modern engine. We re-architected all the data, how the entire game fits together to eliminate issues and limitations and performance bottlenecks that had frustrated us that we couldn't get past with the original, to make bigger galaxies possible, to allow for a fully scalable and modern UI, and also to give people kind of the scale and scope of space that we really had wanted to from the beginning, and to be able to see your ships, in detail, and zoom into battles and see more as you zoom in, the same way you can in the galaxy in Distant Worlds. That was really one of the key things that drove us. We had also wanted to expand on a lot of other things, a lot of other areas. One on the content side, we knew that when we went to a full 3D game, that there would be some limitations as far as the breadth and scope we could cover right from the bat. But what we wanted to do is go a little bit more in depth and differentiate the factions and flesh them out a bit more versus what they had been in Distant Worlds 1. So we have right now 7 playable factions, 13 non-playable independents, which covers all the original Distant Worlds 1 factions. Just 7 of them start out playable, to give you a selection that covers as wide a diversity of playstyles as we could, and add full animated characters to every faction, story events for each faction, 3D spaceships for each faction. We've still got a lot of things going on as far as the procedurally generated galaxies. So every galaxy is still different. There are still events. Some of them are just built in procedurally, random events that will happen as you play. Some of them are storyline based, which you can turn on and off. Things that are also going to be limitations in this initial release versus Universe are that you're not going to be able to play as a pirate, and you're not going to have the Ancient Galaxy storyline. What we see this as is more of a reimagining of the original classic Distant Worlds era, with some additional content and some additional stories to make it a little more deep in the areas where we could focus on. And if you want, I can discuss some of those areas where we've made improvements.
Yeah, we can maybe go and cover these when we sort of look at some gameplay. One of the things that, as you know, is the key pillar of the original Distant Worlds is the freedom it's given to the players in in customizing their own game. Was there any further improvement you did on Distant Worlds 2, and what's the perspective you started from in tackling that subject?
Right. So this has been one of our key pillars for sure, from the beginning. And Elliot and I both feel strongly that we want players to be of all kinds to be able to feel that there is a place for them to step into where they're going to be comfortable in Distant Worlds. So you have what we call customizable automation, which we think leads to player freedom. So what you can do, and I'll show some of this in the gameplay, is that you can look at the different main areas that the game covers, and you can choose whether you're going to have those under your manual control, whether you're going to fully automate them and have the AI control them. And this is literally like area by area, and even down to the level of ship by ship. And then you can also set what we call advisors on. So if you want to not have an area be fully automated, but you also want to make sure you don't miss things, and that you want to get occasional cues that might suggest good ideas and good points where you should execute plans there, then you can turn your advisors on. And your advisors now can be in 2 different modes. They can be in the classic suggest mode, where they'll give you suggestions and you'll see those suggestions, and if you ignore them, nothing will happen. Or suggest and execute, where they'll give you your suggestions, and if you don't do anything to say, no, I don't want to do that, they'll go ahead and do them for you anyway. We've also added additional automation settings down, again, all the way to the individual ship level, where you can say, I want to have a ship fully automated, fully manual, or, I'd like this exploration ship to primarily focus on scouting systems, or surveilling my enemy systems, or just exploring new systems I haven't been to before. So it's sort of a more customizable automation and more policy settings that allow you to in a fine-grained way, adjust what you want the AI to do for you without having to step in and do it for it. And that's all organized much better in the new UI than it was in the original as well.
Well, we're going to jump into setting up a game right now. Just to note that what you're going to see is late alpha. Some of the art is still placeholder. You'll see some elements are not final, but what you'll see is a good representation of what the final game will look like. Let's jump in this clip, and Eric, you can narrate a bit as images are shown.
Sure. So everyone just be aware, I am narrating as I see it. So if I'm lagging a second or so behind, that's just the nature of how we have to do things this year. All right, so what I'm going to be showing you here is I'm just going to be going through the initial game setup screens once the clip starts. So I'll be going through what we call the galaxy setup to show you all the ways that you can customize your galaxy. For those of you who haven't seen Distant Worlds before, this will give you an idea of the customization options. For those of you who have seen it, you may note some differences, and I'll try to point those out. So this is the first screen. You've got your choice of shapes of galaxies. You've got your choice of how many stars. We go up to 2,000 star systems now, which means tens of thousands of planets, moons. Nebula density and galaxy size and sectors, how spread out those stars are or how compressed they are. And we have nebulas now are also more important as a form of galactic geography. There are additional nebula effects that really create some natural choke points and bridges and things like that as far as how the galaxy is connected. And this point determines how advanced the other AI empires that you're playing against are, how aggressive they are, your difficulty level. Distant Worlds, by default, the AI doesn't cheat, but you can give it advantages through the difficulty level. And then the research now, by default, the research is going to have variable paths, and you're only going to see the next project in the tree, but you can turn it back to the old everything's visible and the paths are fixed. This is the settings for the pirates. Pirates are one of the earliest threats you will face in Distant Worlds. There are space creatures as well, though we're not showing the space creatures today. How frequently you'll find new places you can colonize, how many independent worlds there will be. And now we're going through the different species and races that you can play. We've got the Ectarians, who we're featuring today, the Mortallon, who you will also see briefly a bit later today, who are a much more aggressive, warlike faction. And then we've got the Beskara, the Hakkonish. Now we're showing the Teekans, who are effectively space pack rats, the Xenox, very wise lore keepers, humans, Hakkonish, who are somewhat xenophobic capitalist traders, and the Beskara, who basically just have a hive mind and they kind of want to eat and enslave everybody else. So we're setting up an Ectarian technocracy here. So a lot of different governments you can choose from. Some of them vary based on what particular faction you chose to play in terms of what governments are available. And for the Ectarians, one of the unique ones they have available to them is the technocracy, which is a very science-focused government that allows them to advance a bit faster when it comes to research. So here we set up our home system, how expanded we are at the start, what our starting tech level is, and we're going for what's called a pre-warp start here. And where in the galaxy we're going to start. In the pre-warp start, we're just going to start with, we're really going to start with one ship that gets built right away, an exploration ship, and you're literally building your way up from one planet and one ship to explore the galaxy. Okay, that previous screen was how many AI empires you're fighting against. I left that at the defaults. And then all the victory condition customizations, the story customizations, and you can play with or without victory conditions. And now this is where it would go to generate the galaxy. And here we have a little cut screen that shows some pirates coming at you. And that's pretty much the initial setup.
Yeah. So just to answer some questions I've seen in the chat, Balin, yes, of course, we're going to upload the entire video as a VOD afterwards, so you can go back and check every single frame and make sure that you don't miss any detail. Thanks, Eric. Looks
and I'll mention
really
briefly,
good.
Marco. I just saw one question there too, because I covered the victory conditions very briefly. You can turn on. You have all the victory conditions that you had available in Distant Worlds, including faction-specific ones, and you can turn them on and off and adjust the threshold of victory as desired. So you can literally play in a sandbox where there's no end condition, or you can set up a quick game where victory can come relatively quickly.
Yeah, one of the questions I'd like to answer now, because I see it recurring, Eric, about pirates and if they will be available at some point. Of course, the plan is to make all the factions available as time goes, but this is the set for release. As you can see, everything is in 3D. Everything required a lot more work to achieve current results. So we have to make sure that we give enough variety to the players so that they can experience various levels of gameplay, but also make sure that we make this achievable in terms of timing, because this has been in development for quite a while now.
Yeah, no, we'll be adding more playable factions through expansions in the future.
Yeah. So Eric, everybody's gagging for gameplay. So what are we going to see in the next clip? Next clip.
All right. So the next clip is basically going to pick up where we left off, which is that we're going to begin. We're going to do about 20 minutes of gameplay in the early game. We're going to begin as an Ectarian technocracy with one world, and I'm going to first show you various parts of the interface so that you get a sense of all the things that are in the game. And then we're actually going to be playing for a little while, just exploring our own system, expanding beyond our world, building some ships and some stations, and just getting to the point, well, you'll see where we get to. But it's going to be sort of a peaceful initial setting up of our economy, and so you can get a sense of the scope and how that early expansion through your system goes.
Right, go for it.
All right, so here we're seeing our little intro. This is our starting world, which is being pinged here by the event. And we've got a new leader appearing, who I'm looking at now, who apparently is going to give us some help with income. Not much otherwise as yet, pretty inexperienced leader. And we're going to be looking at the interface here in a moment. As we go, I'm zooming out to take a look. This is the galaxy, and I'm looking at the system badge here, which gives me some summarized information for any system and location in the game. And up in the top left, I'm now looking through the interface. So this is the economic interface. I'm looking through the funding levels, which you can now control, the summaries of your maintenance, your government bonuses and bonuses from all sources that are summarized for you there, various of the policy settings. This is where we talked about some of the customizable automation and the guidance that you can give through policies to the AI as far as what you want it to do and how you want it to do it. I'll note that while we're doing this in the bottom left, that's sort of a selection dialog. I just deselected, but everything that we have selected, you'll see more information about it in the bottom left. On the bottom right are various map overlays. And I'm just adjusting right now the policy settings to match what I want in this particular playthrough, automating what I want to automate, setting things to manual that I want on manual, so forth. So here I'm making sure that I can choose when to crash research, which is something where you can invest some of your funds into improving the speed of your research. I'm just going through the interface. We haven't met anybody yet, so there's really not any diplomacy to show yet, but this is how the interface basically puts these things together. Summary of our colonies, including this is our home world. And in the bottom left here, we have our summaries of the development and corruption and happiness of our home planet, what the population is composed of, and our population policies, what resources it has. And there are ancient ruins that we will still be investigating, and what it's building. So it starts out building a few ships. The first, which will be completed, is an exploration ship, and that will get us started. The others are already in the queue as in a pre-warp start. So you don't have to pay extra resources or credits for them, but they'll take longer to complete. And here's our resource and stock levels, which we can again set by location. And this is just showing you what the different parts of the interface are used for. Artifacts are a new part of the game, which we'll cover in more detail in a future episode, as it were. That's our first exploration ship that's being built, sort of an exploration summary. This is our resource summary, where we can look through the different types of resources and get a sense of our production versus our usage, what the cost of them is, if we were to trade for them, whether we have any sources of them. And we're looking through here, the construction resources are critical for actually building things. Luxury resources improve various aspects of your economy and development. Here we have your construction screen, where you can both look at your ship designs, you can queue up ships for construction, and your research screen, where you can see your research bonuses, research stations, research locations, and go into the research tree. And here we have a list through your military of all the different army and fleet and defensive-based parts of your military, and you can set army and fleet templates now too, which we'll again go into more detail later. Makes a great way, though, to design your fleets and armies just the way you want them without too much hands-on stuff. So now we're looking through our undersea ruins, and we recovered some technology that boosted our early warp field experiments and our research labs. And now we're getting this is our message filters. So this is our new messaging system, where you can open up your message log and easily filter in and out which messages you want to see. And this is our first exploration ship, which was just built at our planet. And we'll shortly be going off to explore something. We have, looks like, a bunch of asteroids around our planet and a moon nearby. All of these are unexplored. One of the things we have in the game now also is multiple exploration levels. We have the summary up top of what we're currently researching, and here's the research tree. So I'm looking in at the early warp field experiments, which are currently crash researched. And I'm using the navigation there to look at other parts of the research tree. The research tree is now all in one screen that you navigate either with your mouse or by using the navigation up at the top right. And then as you add things, they go into the queue on the right, so you can easily see what you've planned and in what order. So I'm just looking through some of the different technologies. I've decided to queue an exploration, a resource scanner, which will help me more quickly explore certain places as my exploration ships go around. And I'm researching my first energy deflectors, which are an early form of shield, as well as some armor plating for my ships, which will come in handy. And I changed my mind on that. Better reactors, which will make my ships able to sustain more components that require energy, some early beam weapons. And the better reactors also help with fuel efficiency when it comes to ships, because they tend to be better at converting Caslon, which is the fuel here, over to energy. So here we're looking at the actual design of my exploration ship. It's got different component bays in the bottom left, and it's got the components that can go in those bays in the top left. A lot of those bays are currently empty because I'm lacking certain entire component categories, like some of the defense and weapons components. But for external components, you actually can place them by clicking on the ship or clicking in the design bays on the bottom left, and you can see where they show up. We have actual meshes that get added to the model or removed from the model, whether those components are present. The right side is a summary of all of the different aspects of the ship based on the design. So when I was looking at the right side there, that's a quick way of the player to see, you know, what is this ship good at? What is this ship not good at? So now I'm taking a look at my escort, which is the only military ship hull that I've researched at present. And I'm looking at what weapons are on there. I have an early area weapon as my only weapon that I've currently researched, the wave bomb. And over on the right-hand side, again, you could see the summary. And so my advisor is giving me a suggestion to build a spaceport at my initial planet and giving me a suggestion to build another exploration ship. I decided to accept both of those suggestions. And the game is ongoing. So there is a metallic rocky metal moon. I'm looking through my little interface on the bottom here where I can see what the different ships are that are in construction, what the different ships and planets are in the system. And our exploration ship, we're currently at a pre-warp stage, which means that we actually don't have faster than light engines. This is what we call the very earliest start. It's really how Distant Worlds is meant to be played, but you can configure a game to start at any tech level you want. So you can start with a fully expanded, mature empire, or you can start with, this type of start where at the very beginning. We got a spy there, so I took a quick look at the spy. We do have espionage, intelligence, and counterintelligence, all kinds of missions you can do in Distant Worlds 2 as in Distant Worlds 1. So I'm looking at this ship here. This is our exploration ship. And because we had it set to automated, it decided to go ahead and go explore that little moon next to our planet. So you're going to see it gradually head over there with its sublight engines, which are quite slow. And we're currently researching the faster engines. And we are going to see it exploring those systems. So right now what it's going to be doing is it's going to be sending out its exploration drones. It's actually got survey components that's going to be exploring that system. Okay, so here's our first resource that we've discovered. And when you're playing this for the first time, one of the things that every time you discover a new resource, we found Aculon Steel and Cuprica here. It's going to explain to you exactly what each of those do. And over on the resource screen, you can also get a description to get an understanding of how they fit into your economy. There's a relatively limited number of construction resources, which are what you really need to build things. And also your worlds, your colonized worlds, will want to consume some construction resources for their development, and also some luxury resources. But without construction resources, your economy will grind to a halt as far as being able to build and maintain things. So one of the things we see here is that we found this place. It's listing that now as a possible new mining location, and we've got a construction ship completed. So we'll now be able to, and there, since it's automated, it's already decided to go and build a new mining station. And it's taken the resources from our home planet that it needs in its cargo to go build that mining station. And it's going to head over to that moon and build a mining station. And I should note, again, there are speed controls on the game. I'm playing it at a speed where I can have time to explain all this to you, but you can also speed things up. And over here's our spaceport, which is currently going to be built by the planet as soon as it completes the last ship in the construction queue ahead of it. That's basically telling us where the spaceport's going to be. The initial scaffolding for it is there, if you will, but the planet will be building it soon. And you can see the ships heading over, mining ship, construction ship heading over to the planet. The exploration ship is going to start exploring asteroids and other locations now. Get another request for an exploration ship. Again, early on, it's usually a good idea to have several exploration ships and several construction ships so that you can explore and construct in parallel until you get a good base economy going. A good base economy I was defined as having a good supply of each of the more common construction resources, a good supply from one or more locations, ideally for resiliency of fuel, and access to several luxury resources, which will improve the development of your planet, which will generally improve the happiness and income of your people. And again, for each of these resources, as you find them and look at them, it'll explain what they're good for. So I'm checking my construction queues, and now we see the spaceport is starting to be built. The lights aren't on yet, but we can see some construction drones flying to and from the planet, and we can see here a summary of the components. This is based on the design of what's currently built, what's still being built, what is going to be built in the end. Ships and stations now, and you may see in the bottom left, it's got this little, hexagonal view that has a little 100% in the middle. That's the hull rating. That means the hull is fully intact and complete. But then you got two rings around that. One is the armor, and then the outer ring is the shields for when those are available. And when you hover over that, you get kind of a summary. I'm watching the mining station now mining, and I'm watching my stocks go up. There's a lot more transparency in Distant Worlds 2 as far as your resource economy, and you can watch from sort of these top-level screens as things are mined and where things are going. Okay, so a bunch of exciting things just happened. We discovered fast and light travel. We finished our early warp experiments. So we now have what's called a skip drive, which means our ships will be wanting to retrofit to those early skip drives. They're good for basically fast and light travel within a system. And you need to get one level beyond that to what we call the warp bubble to be able to really effectively explore outside your system. But this will greatly speed up our progress inside the system. It means we won't have to crawl around with sublight engines anymore. And we have our spaceport now, which is also going to improve our ability to construct much more quickly. It's possible to build ships on a planet, but it's more costly and takes more time. And on a spaceport, you can build them significantly faster. And spaceports also increase the docking speed, the speed at which ships can dock and load and unload the things they need. So we're looking at the spaceport design here. You can see the right now it's a fairly limited design again because we only have so many things available that we've researched, but it does what it needs to do as far as construction and as far as docking of ships. And so we're taking a look now at some of the civilian ships. So this is part of the private economy. You know, these are things you don't have to control in Distant Worlds 2. And this is sometimes a surprise to people the first time they play it, is they see ships going around and doing things and they don't understand what they're doing or what they're controlling. Well, the private economy in Distant Worlds 2 is not hidden behind the scenes. You really see it as you play if you want to. These ships are automated. You know, you can't take a civilian freighter under your control, but the private sector will build these. And the term, what is a private sector, can vary based on government type, but the private sector will build these and it will use them to effectively create the links that keep your goods and your economy flowing. As the state, you have control over where you're going to grant those mining licenses and where you're going to explore. So you can determine where you're sending your exploration ships and where you're going to allow mining stations to be built. And that will greatly influence the goods that you get, how far they come from. So one of our retrofitted ships had its first hyper jump. So, and we see it heading out there, moving way faster than our sublight ships were going. It's jumping all the way over to this other world. Looks like a gas giant. And this is something that an automated exploration ship is going to want to do relatively early on, because gas giants tend to be the best sources for the resource Caslon, which is our fuel source. So to get ships that can move as fast as possible and make good use of these faster than light drives, you need Caslon. And that is indeed Caslon right there. So that sort of light blue gas. So that's going to be the next priority for building a mining station to hook up the fuel part of our economy. And again, this is very early days here. So once you've got these early economic parts hooked up, you don't need to really pay that much attention to them unless you develop a shortage, which is what the very top level of those resource screens are meant for. And those were some luxury resources we just found at that sulfuric volcanic planet. And now as we've got our explorers with skip drives moving around, we're getting more and more worlds being explored and more resource discoveries being announced as we go, which will allow us to fill in the available sources for the various construction, luxury, and fuel resources. So we're now sort of hitting our stride with the skip drive. We've also made a research breakthrough. We've got enough money to do some more construction if we want. We're finding Emerus crystal, necrostone. All these are critical construction resources for different components. Depending on where you go in the research tree, some resources will be more important than others. So for example, if you're going to be focused very much on, let's say, energy weapons, some of these construction resources will be more critical. If you're going to focus more on shields or on armor or on just certain types of civilian ship hulls, you're going to have different resource priorities as far as the construction resources. And here are some interesting luxury resources that we're finding. You can see each one has different bonuses that it gives now to the worlds where those luxury resources are brought back to. So the ideal goal with your economy is you want to have unfettered routes for your civilian ships, which are very shy of military conflict, to not be bothered as they go to these various places, these various sources of construction, fuel, and luxury resources, and then bring them back to your populated planets, because your people on your populated planets want these, And if they can't get them, they won't be as happy and they won't develop as quickly and your economy won't be as powerful. So at the same time, if you end up in a conflict situation and someone can effectively cut your freighter routes or destroy your mining stations or even blockade your populated worlds, then your economy can start to decline as a result of those shortages. So I'm watching here as I go through mining ships, construction ships, I'm looking at new research locations. So research locations, what we have in distant worlds is some places in the galaxy are going to be more revealing when it comes to certain research areas than others. And here you can see a summary of my freighters transporting goods around my system. But what you want to do is you want to try to find with your exploration ships where these different places of interest are. And some of them can be interesting research-wise. Some of them can have other bonuses that help you in other ways. Some where you may find artifacts, some where you may find other hidden things. There are multiple possible exploration levels now in distant worlds too. So even the first time you go to a planet, you may not find out everything about it. But so as you get these different research bonuses, you want to build research stations there. Now, you can also generate research anywhere, but you are not going to get the bonuses that really allow you to unlock the higher, more advanced technologies without getting enough of these research bonuses. Those basically let you pass certain thresholds that you need to unlock new eras, if you will, of research in your research tree. And you can get technologies, and I'm again looking through here as watching constantly as my economy is going, making sure that I've got no early shortages that are critical, making sure my mining ships are doing what they need to do, and making sure that the automation, that the AI is doing what I expect it to do, and that there's nothing where I need to step in. And so far, it's doing great. So here's our new research station constructed, which is going to give us a plus 13% bonus to construction research. So we've got 2 of those bonuses now, which means that we're now up to 26%, I think, on construction research, which mainly has to do with things like new ship hulls. And here I'm adjusting my funding priorities. So I'm shifting more of my bonus funding and into, which is funding I haven't spent on maintenance and haven't reserved for other expenses. I'm spending some of it to boost my colony growth and some of it to boost my research, which effectively allows me to unlock my full research potential. So with that new research station built, that was justifiable moment to increase my research spending. And as your economy gets stronger, it becomes easier to fill the needs for some of this bonus funding. And here's where we're going to end the gameplay reveal. We got our first notification that, oops, we now have pirates raiding one of our mining stations. They've showed up in our system. They most likely detected the hyperspace signature of our skip drives, and they've come to take a look and see what's going on and what advantages they might get from that. So we're going to, I think in a moment it'll pause here. And that's the actual gameplay reveal for today. Just some of the early game economy setup.
Why did you stop there?
Because we'd gotten to about 20 minutes and you told me to limit it to 15, so I figured I was already on borrowed time.
I think, Eric, if you're okay after the hour is finished, you can stay there for a little while to answer some of the questions if you're good with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Because I've seen so many questions there. I think the guys deserve a bit more insights.
Sure.
So what are you gonna show now? Because it's not over, right?
No, it's not over. So we have all right. Let's see. We have a few more things to show. So for the next clip here, we're going to be giving you a special treat. I know that probably a lot of folks are unhappy that we didn't get to play into the pirates. And one of the things that you would have seen with the pirates, of course, is the first time that we get into combat. So we didn't want to leave you without showing any combat. So what we did is we did something even better. We went into a later tech era, and we put together an Egdarian fleet and a Mortalan fleet and had them encounter each other around a particular planet. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be showing you part of a fleet battle between an early mid-game Actarian fleet and this Mortallan fleet. Now, the Mortallan, I should give them a little introduction here. They're a very warlike species, and it's not unusual for them to come into conflict with their neighbors, even generally peaceful species like the Actarians. So in this case, the Actarian fleet is focused on energy beam weapons, and it has great fighters and bombers, while the Mortallan fleet is focused more on kinetic weapons, energy torpedoes, which are their big punch, and missiles for point defense. You'll see escorts, frigates, destroyers, a few cruisers on each side. The battle lasts about 5 minutes, and we're going to run it at a slow speed just so you can see many of the details of the combat. I may not be able to keep up with everything on the narration, but we'll also be releasing these. You'll be able to watch these later on at your own speed and look at things in more detail. And I also should note, not every weapon effect is final, but it'll give you a good idea of what the battles will look and sound like. There are sounds included here that hopefully you'll be able to hear even with my narration. So let's go.
Right, go for it, Bruno.
All right, so here we see the two fleets gathered in a moon around a gas giant. I'm just looking through in the bottom interface at the different ship types down below. And up here, we were looking through, again, the escorts, frigates, destroyers, and cruisers for each side. The more ships in red are the Mortallans, and the ships in blue are the Actarians. So we're looking around at these two fleets gathered. And this is obviously a battle we set up. So we will have an Actarian cruiser. I think we're going to look at the quick design for this. This is later on, so you can see a lot more stuff filled in with components. It's got a pretty full feature set. You can see the Sentinel multi-beam defense. Those point defense shatter force beams are its main attacking full-length beams. It's got shields, it's got armor, some repair bots. You can look at these ships in the design screen pretty much from any angle and as close as you want. And as you put things on and off them, they'll change a bit in how they look. Then we're going to, I think, also look at the Mortallans. Here's a Mortallan cruiser. And you can see if you look at the bottom left too, that's 960 shields, 192 armor, and 100% hull. So they look a little bit tougher than some of the early game ships we were looking at. And these energy torpedoes go out to a range of 4,000. They're a lot stronger at close range. So here's the Mortallan cruiser in the design screen. You can see the hangar on top. And you can see now the component bay markers are on. And again, we're taking a quick look through the railguns, the heavy pulse torpedoes, the interceptor missiles. These are all open to your design. You can automate this. If you don't want to touch a ship design ever, you can fully automate this and it'll make you some good ship designs. If you want to customize your ships, you can. If you want to mix that, you can. It's totally up to you. And now they're going to start. Now the battle's going to start. Now you see this selected ship, there's a light blue circle and a light red circle. The light blue is the point defense range. The light red circle, they're semi-transparent, so they're a little hard to see. That's the main weapon range. Now we're clicking on some fighters and bombers. You see both some torpedoes launching out of the Mortallan fleet, some of the Actarian point defenses. This is the Sentinel multi-defense beams shooting out to try to shoot down some of the incoming Mortallan torpedoes. A Mortallan ship jumped behind the Actarian fleet to try to flank them. You're going to see the fighters and bombers from each side engaging, and the point defenses engaging the fighters and bombers, some of the torpedoes hitting. Those are the shatter force beams firing from that Actarian destroyer. You can see these little explosions in space. That's the dogfights and swirls of, fighters and bombers intercepting each other, shooting each other up. You can see the big beams firing out from the Actarian ships, a lot of the little point defense beams. The little you see these groups of four missiles heading out from the Mortallan ships. Those are their interceptor missiles firing out in volleys of 4 to intercept the Actarian fighters and bombers. The Actarian beams aren't really very interceptable. And we're taking a look now at, as the ships close, we're going to look a little closer. You can see some of the Mortallan fighters, interceptors just blew up an Actarian bomber. You're going to see a little bit more dogfighting happening here. Again, you can close in, you can look at this stuff really close, you can follow any of these ships. Some of the bombers have heavier fighter-sized weapons. They're good at stripping the enemy ship shields and even damaging them if enough of them pile on. Some of them are, really just meant for shooting, intercepting some of the enemy fired weapons or intercepting enemy bombers. Now, the Actarians have the advantage in this battle at long range, but as the ranges close, the Mortallan pulse torpedoes hit really hard, and you can see the Actarian destroyer has already taken significant damage here. And a lot of the Actarian ships, when things get closer, will start to have some trouble. In this case, the Mortallian ships are actually faster than them too, so I don't think they would be able to run away very quickly. Excuse me. And back here, I'm going to zoom in here. There are 2 Octarian frigates chasing this Mortallian destroyer. They've knocked its reactor offline, so it's really in tough shape. They're firing their impact assault blasters at it. You can see they've already taken out the armor and the shields. They're now just using their sentinel beams to help with point defense while their impact assault blasters chew through the rest of the hull, which is effectively going to destroy this this Mortallian ship. We've got 1 Octarian cruiser that's still fighting effectively. We've got a bunch of little side battles within the main battle here, with ships chasing each other, pulse torpedoes unloading at close range. The 1 Octarian cruiser in the center, I think, has taken a pretty good pounding from those Mortallian cruisers with close range torpedoes. So as I'm watching the battle, I'm selecting these different ships, and you can see me checking their components and their hull and shield situations. You can also control ships manually. I'm letting the AI handle this, but you can go in at this battle and you can tell ships what to target and where to move if you so choose, if that's your thing. Just like in the game, you can also choose what components ships have. You can choose whether you're assigning certain admirals to command certain fleets, so on and so forth. And that's where we're going to stop with the battle for today, just to stay within our time limit.
By the way, guys, you can hire Eric to comment your own space battles. He comes away with, I think it's like 2 packs of Oreos, right?
That'll be sufficient, yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Girl Scout cookies, I like those too.
Thank you for. I mean, it was really cool to see you comment on the real-time battle. I think it's it's a feature we should add to the game. Before we jump to the next little video, I just want to answer a couple of questions I've seen on the chat. The game is definitely releasing this year.
Yes,
that's a 99.9%. You will be able
the final date will depend on beta feedback, but it'll be this year.
Yeah, you will be able to join the beta this week, meaning that you can subscribe to the beta. Then we will add people as we go, like in small chunks, so that we don't have like a big wave of people giving feedback. We do that traditionally. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's how we do it usually. So it will be like waves of beta testers, but you will be able to subscribe from this week. So just monitor the site, and we'll be giving you more news about it.
Yep.
There will be an extra little video, and then I will leave you to Eric. And your questions, so Eric can answer some of your questions. Before we get there, just a reminder that next week on Tuesday we have a stream of Starship Troopers. It's going to be again gameplay reveal with some cool things to see. The following week, I think it's the 9th of February, we have the reveal of the upcoming game from Black Lab Games, the developers behind Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. So make sure that every Tuesday at 5 p.m. UK time you tune in, because we've got a lot to reveal. And of course we have the Thursday stream at 4 o'clock UK time. That's a tea time where we just chat about stuff happening in the strategy gaming market, our upcoming releases. It's release day for us usually on Thursday, so there's usually a lot happening in that day. Eric, what's next?
Yes. So one last clip. We posted a little preview of a sort of zoom out to the galaxy and a zoom back in. And we're just going to show you a brief updated version of that. This time it's going to include the game running. So you're going to see ships moving. You're going to see ship arrows showing where they're going. And we've also got the resource flow overlay, the map overlay turned on. So you're also going to see some red arrows showing you as a map overlay you can turn on and off where your primary resource sources are and what direction they're flowing to your colonies and spaceports. So that's just going to be a very brief 1-minute video to close things out. So this is a human spaceport. And you see some human freighters going back and forth. Now we're zooming out, and you see some of the ships moving. You see some of the ship arrows now, and these big red arrows are the resource flow overlay. So that's showing you basically which other systems the human economy is currently drawing resources from, and the size of the arrow indicates the magnitude of the resource flow from that system. And that's the zoom in, zoom out. Just again to show you Distant Worlds is a seamless game. There aren't multiple layers. You're not having to switch between galaxy and planet and ship. And when you're not looking at something, it's still going on. You can choose at any time to zoom in and look at whatever you want.
Right, I'll start with the first question and I'll leave you guys. Eric, one of the questions I think it's important to answer is what engine are we using for the game and why did we choose that particular engine? I think it's a very good starting point.
Well, okay, so it's actually based on an engine that was originally called Zenko, is now called Stride, and we went through a sort of engine search initially. We actually switched engines about a year into the development, and the main determinant on that was to find an engine that would meet our requirements for 64-bit 3D and enough access to the source for customization that it would suit Elliot's needs for development, because it's a heavily customized version of that engine. And when we looked at all the possibilities and Elliot's coding preferences, this is what best suited the needs. So it's a combination of it met our goals and from the standpoint of features, and it met Elliot's goals from the standpoint of code customizability. So at this point, it's based on that, but it's really very custom. And I guess from here, I am going to be taking questions. So I'm going to stay around as long as I can. So let me see. The first question I see here is, please tell us more about the user interface. Okay, so our goal with the user interface was we wanted to, Distant Worlds evolved over time. The UI evolved over time, and that's obviously can be a bad thing. So what we wanted to do is we want to take all the key areas of the game and we wanted to make them available, the actionable information for them available at as top a level as we could as our first priority. And we wanted to integrate it tightly with the map and the galaxy also. So those were our two priorities. So what you'll see is as we have the UI on the top left, we have these very top buttons that cover the key major areas of the game. When you hover over each of those, you can just hover over it. It'll give you a little pop down with these second layer of buttons. And it'll also give you a little summary that gives you just a quick at a glance, like here, are any of your colonies unhappy or rebelling, what it's showing now? Are any of your resources critical or low? Are any of your diplomatic situations in trouble? So that was our first goal. And then if you want to explore any of those in more detail, then you can hover over or click one of the buttons below to go into more detail as far as that list. Now, similarly, whenever you're looking at a list of things in the game, everything in that list is tied in with the map now. So if you're hovering over a ship in your list, it's going to ping you on the map. It's going to highlight and show where that is on the map if it's within your view. We also added this sort of system outline on the bottom that lets you quickly, in the bottom middle, that lets you quickly navigate your way through everything that's in your system, whether you can easily see it or not. You can just hover over there and it'll tell you this is everything that's basically in your view within the system. And then in the bottom left, we just reorganized all that to make it, whether you're looking at a ship or a system or a station, to put as much information that's important forward and not bury anything that really you need to look at. We didn't want you having to go through, if you're doing a particular task, we didn't want you having to go through multiple parts of the interface and drill down into additional menus and full screens. And I guess that's one of the other points, is that almost nothing is full screen. You've got a research screen and a design screen that are full screen because they really need to be. But for the rest, it's all done using these types of dialogues on the side so that you can still see the rest of the game and have it be fully integrated with the map. All right, so let me scroll back up. Hopefully that answers some of the UI questions. And there are a lot of map overlays and a lot of new message filters and so on. So let me see here. Is it possible to have multiplayer? Yes, it is, but multiplayer is not going to be in the initial release. We designed it around that, and it's possible we may add that in the future, but I can't promise that yet. I just say that it is possible. UI scaling is real. It's not blurry. I've tried it at multiple resolutions. It's one of the things our new engine lets us do. So what you're seeing here is pretty much what it should look like at any resolution you're playing, and it's just a question of whether you'll see, more of the actual galaxy or system view. The videos I took here were at 1920 by 1200. Next up, the game does make use of multiple cores. It's a full multi-threaded, multi-core capable engine. I actually have 16 cores in my processor, and they get a pretty good workout when I'm getting into the late game stuff. Orbital movement of planets. So the planets rotate. Because of the scale change, they're not really orbiting around the sun the way they used to. It's getting the time scale of that right with the ships and having the 3D ships, being able to go into the actual hangars of the spaceports and out, because they actually do dock if they're of the right size. It made more sense at this point to keep the rotation in and to not try to basically deal with that issue of the time scale of the orbiting versus the ship speeds versus the docking of 3D objects. Next thing here. Modding. Yes, we will have, there's actually better modding support than there was in Distant Worlds universe. So we've externalized pretty much everything we can as far as the game data. And also we've built the parts of the game that have, 2D or 3D art in such a way that we're trying to make it possible for modders, even working with easily available free tools, to be able to mod those, as long as they basically know how to do 3D modeling and can follow the guide that we're going to be releasing with it. How big can fleets be? I mean, theoretically, as big as you want and can build. It's more a question of what your economy can support. The game has no artificial limit on the fleet. It will not initially, there are no plans for immediate localization at release, but we would love to localize it as time goes on. We're showing the ship identification sheet for the Ekdarians now. I'm not sure if we showed this earlier, but this is sort of a nice little image that shows you the different ship hulls for the Ekdarian faction, from what I'm seeing on the screen behind me here. I think we're going to release that as a separate image too, for those that want to take a closer look. And then, are you planning expansions to further deepen mechanics of the game? Yes, we have a lot of additional ideas, and we have a lot of expansion plans, and we won't talk about those now, just to say that yes, there's a lot planned for expansions. How has combat on the planetary level changed, evolved? It's a little better balanced, but that was not one of the areas we focused on making a lot of changes to. One of the key changes is that in Distant Worlds universe, you had this stage, the way ground invasions happened is you had ships come, troop transports, if you will, came to a planet, and maybe there was a fleet with them that was bombarding some key targets on the planet before the troops landed, and they would launch down onto the planet. And there was a separate ground combat screen, and there was a part of that ground combat screen where you would see the little landing pods defend, and you would see that they were getting shot down as they defended. Well, that part we took out of the screen, and it actually happens in the view now. So you'll see your troop transports launching their assault pods towards the planet, and you'll see any point defenses on the planet or from friendly ships nearby trying to shoot down those assault pods. The ones that actually reach the planet reach the planet. The actual ground combat on the planet then is just the ground combat phase rather than the orbital descent phase. And the ground combat itself is similar in that it's got combined arms. There are a few more technologies that relate to that, but you've got various different types of troops that you can recruit. We have one new type of troops, which is called a Titan. And there are more interactions between them, and that we've added more factors that you can use to define the different types of troops and how vulnerable or effective they are against each other instead of just their strength. So I guess, we went from rock, paper, scissors to rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, right? But that's about it for ground combat. And let's see what's next. Can we destroy worlds? Yes, but I'm not going to give more info on that now. As far as whether the engine is GPU bound or CPU bound, I think we'll find out more about that in beta testing because there's also more optimization to be done. So I can't really answer that yet. But it already can do more than Distant Worlds Universe's engine did by quite a bit. As far as the major differences in terms of game mechanics, I would encourage you to take a look at, we released a list of changes, which I think covers most of the major changes. I know it doesn't cover all of them, but that's been released as of this morning, should be on the product pages or on our forums and such, that summarizes some of the major change areas. I'm guessing that covers at least half of the things we changed. We may remember more as time goes on. And I should also note, people talking about fleet battles and what the different ships do. So each ship now, when you're setting your fleet templates, there's also a role you can set for your ships within the fleet. So they can be like a picket ship, a close escort, or a capital ship. And that'll also determine automatically as they're fighting whether they'll tend to try to stay on the edges of the fleet and intercept things coming in, or whether they'll stay closer and try to help with point defense and help escort the capital ships, or for the capital ships, whether they'll try to stay in the center of the fleet and focus more on engaging other capital ships. And I would encourage those of you who are looking at this and saying, you're seeing a lot from Distant Worlds 1. Yeah, it is. It's definitely meant to have everything that was in Distant Worlds 1, but I would encourage you to take a look at that list we revealed that also talks about all the things that are different from Distant Worlds 1. Okay, next up. Yes, you can manually save the game. There's also autosave, and for those who played Distant Worlds, the saving is about 1 million times faster and the loading than it used to be. As far as modding, what software, I mean, really, when it comes to things like the data files, just a text editor or an XML editor is all you need. When it comes to things like the art, 2D and 3D art skills, and there are freely available tools for that of various kinds for building models. One of the trickiest things is just that the ship models, as I had mentioned, they have a base model mesh, and then they have component meshes for the external components. So for example, if you're designing a ship and it could have up to 5 engines, well, if you put one engine on the ship, you're going to see a version of the ship hull that has one engine on, not 5 engines. And the arrangement of those engines may vary. And so those are basically these component meshes that are added or subtracted. If you add a hangar to a ship where there previously was a unbroken hull, you might now see a new hangar appear with a hangar opening and a different deformation, as it were, of the hull where that was. When you're adding a weapon where there was previously a smooth hull, now you may see sort of a support mesh for the weapon and the actual weapon turret, or for vertical launchers, like the vertical launcher, mesh going on there. And doing that right is probably the trickiest part to nail down. But once you've got it, the artists we've worked with, once they've got it, they've got it. Okay, let's see. Game logic modding. Well, if by what you mean is like custom AI, then the answer is no. But there are a ton of settings in those data files that adjust both for each of the factions and how they do diplomacy and how they do their strategy and everything they do as far as how they behave. So when it comes to customizing how a faction behaves, I would say that you have control over sort of the AI logic, the AI preferences for that faction, but not the base AI. Though that may be possible in the future. How many AI empires are possible in a huge galaxy? Off the top of the head, I don't remember. It's at least 20. Let's see. I talked a bunch about ground combat already, so if there's more questions about that, ask me again a specific question. How is movement handled? Well, movement is kind of a mix of real and cinematic. I mean, fundamentally, it's a bit more cinematic than real because this is what works better for this type of game. So if you think about, Star Wars types of fleet battles, it's a little bit more of what it's going to look like rather than something that would be, you know, us in 200 years exactly with full real physics. With that said, in ship designs, it does look at what you've put on the ship hull. It does look at the mass of the ship hull. It does look at what you've put on as far as engines and thrusters, and it uses all that in a formula that calculates the acceleration and the maneuverability of that ship. It's just, like I said, a pseudo real system rather than a full real system, because it made, in our opinion, it just works better as far as people understanding the gameplay, rather than being a pure simulator. So yes, you can still customize AI empires. I kind of skipped over that because I left it at its default. If you leave it at its default, as in the original Distant Worlds, you can just say, I want this many, and it'll randomly pick them, or you can specify exactly which ones you want and what they're going to be, and how advanced they're going to be, and where they're going to be. So that's all still in there. Are characters mortal? Characters are mortal, but not in all cases. Some characters will be theoretically immortal, some will be mortal. As far as AI improvements, there are a lot in pretty much every part that we've touched, because this was a ground-up rewrite of Distant Worlds. This wasn't, we took the Distant Worlds code base and modified it to match this new engine. Elliot really rewrote it from scratch for this. And one of the things that we did is we were trying to, from the beginning, make it possible for us to make a smarter AI. And our iterative design and testing has been focused everywhere. One of the most valuable bits of feedback we've gotten from our alpha testers has been ways in which we can improve the AI, because we've sort of been reteaching the AI how to play and trying to make it better and better in all areas than in Distant Worlds 1. So that is our goal. I think right now, and I think Elliot agrees with this, right now the AI is already better than in Distant Worlds 1 in pretty much every area, and in some areas vastly better. And while there are still AI bugs and some things it doesn't do as well as we would like it to do, by release, I think it's going to be, we're going to have all those smoothed out, and it's going to be really, really good. Defense stations do exist, but right now they're sharing the small spaceport model, so they're still there. And let's see, I have to wrap up in a few minutes here, guys. So I think we got 5 more minutes to go. I'll get through as many as I can. So you can research more things at once in research, but it depends on your research stations. When I showed you that early gameplay, we only had a limited number of research stations. We're a small starting one. So at that point, you're only going to be able to research one project at a time. As you get a higher research capacity with more research stations, you will get access to additional research queues. And you can choose whether you want to, what you want to focus those on and how you want to use those. But yeah, you can research more things in parallel later on. So you can get, actually, I don't know the answer on Destroyed Worlds giving resources, because we have not done any significant testing on the world destruction yet. I am not ashamed to admit, but that'll be in there for release. But when you destroy ships, they leave debris behind, and that debris can be picked up for resources, and possibly knowledge of tech can be salvaged. Some factions like the Teekans really love to go around salvaging stuff, especially. And beta sign-up will begin. I think we're actually sending out the links today. We'll be doing beta sign-up over the course of the next few weeks. Now, actual beta testing starting, Elliot's taking a well-deserved vacation next week, so we're going to actually have the beta test start, adding in the first wave of testers. And I want to emphasize what Marco said before. We're not going to be able to get more than a fraction of the people that sign up in. So please understand that signing up is not a guarantee that you're going to get in, but we'll be adding in waves based on as much as we can handle internally and as much feedback as we can handle. So we're going to have that recruitment should be starting today, and in about a week and a half from now, the first testers should be getting in and getting access to a build. Space combat is the same as before. It's better. there are a lot of things we changed in terms of the components and how they interact. There's a much more detailed damage model. I would say, all around space combat is just better than in Distant Worlds 1. It really is. I've spent a lot of time on the balance of that and redoing a lot of the components and how things work together. And obviously you can choose, your points of view as well when it comes to this stuff. No pirate empires at initial launch, but many things are possible in future expansions. Diplomacy and espionage is in, and boy, there's a lot of questions I'm not going to be able to get through. Sorry, guys. Yes, there are pre-made ships. There's full automatic design. Any area of the game that you're looking at and you're thinking, I don't really know if I want to do this part, just be assured there's automation for everything. And the AI can fully handle your designs. If you don't want to handle them, it can fully handle your fleets, etc. Yes, there are defense bases. There is a maximum ship size in that when you're designing a ship has a hull size, it has a maximum size in terms of components that it can fit, and it's got some bays that it can put them in. Then it's up to you how you fill that, basically. And the more of these advanced hulls you research, the ships get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And things like the final large spaceport, the battleships, the carriers get pretty massive. They really look quite large. Ground combat is effectively just a 2D informational screen attached to the planet. And that lets you just have visibility to what's going on, what forces are involved, what bonuses you're getting, and how things are unfolding. All right, I think I am out of time for today. I've hit my mark. So, guys, I'm sorry, but this is just the start. So I really appreciate everyone tuning in and listening in today. And I hope that you all enjoyed this, and we will have more information to share. This is just the start of what we're going to be able to talk to you all about as time goes on. So wish you all well. I hope you all have a good 2021, and we'll be back in touch soon.
The great ocean of stars awaits us. What or who will we find there? In centuries past, our ancestors built the great undersea ruins that still reveal their secrets to us today. Their works were for many generations beyond us. Their ultimate fate unclear. But across the ages, we have long felt the call of the void. The science of our ancestors has shown us how to travel faster than light itself. But the ruins also tell of a terrible and sudden apocalypse which befell them. Yet its cause is unknown to us. We must not allow this to deter us. Our understanding of science and technology has allowed us to glimpse a greater destiny that waits for us beyond our world. Let us complete the work they set before us, and keep science as our guide as we set forth to push back the darkness. Confront any dangers we meet, and bring peace and enlightenment to all.